Beyond fair use. I've thought of this for a long time, and I wish I could say it in a better way. I wrote a page on it, so it's not quite an essay, and had it been a bigger page, it would have been one sentence. But I guess it's one long one and two shorter ones. Of course, the long sentence in my mind is always a reference, if not an homage, a reference, and if not a reference, an homage to Schopenhauer, which then always, is succinctly reduced to the will. And then you can't talk about, in my elementary understanding, if I can even call it that much, in my preschool, kindergarten understanding, you can't really refer to Schopenhauer's will without referring to Nietzsche's will to power. And for that matter, you can't really refer to the will to power without referring to... You can't refer to Nietzsche without referring to Kierkegaard. Can't do it. And I don't know shit about Kierkegaard, but I know when I listen to Kierkegaard on an audiobook, when I read Kierkegaard, I get halfway through one partial sentence and my mind is like, pew. Supposedly they were like some kind of rivals, kind of like Leibniz and Newton, but I don't really see Nietzsche and Kierkegaard as rivals. I pretty much see them as like the same person. But anyway, yeah, fair use, which you can't really talk about without talking about copyright and copy wrong. And then you get into anonymous, and once you get into that, then you get into a whole bunch of things. But anyway, this is just something I wrote, and it's worth thinking about, because it is worth thinking about as far as copyright and law go, because there is a certain need for, like, there's a certain need to be protected. But once you become strong enough, the need for protection, I wouldn't say is abandoned, but it's diminished, or the protection is different. Once something, Disney, perfect example. It's not a brand anymore. It's not something that needs to be protected. It's omnipresent. It's everywhere. It's in people's lives, in people's minds, in people's dreams. It shapes the way we think about things. It being an institution. It being intellectual capital, emotional capital that stretches across time, tied together by a logo, by a brand, but also tied together by our shared experience of it, by, in one sense, its domination over us. An acquiescence to its artifice. But in another sense, subject to our criticism, shaped by our criticism, because it's so popular, because it's everywhere. By market forces, by emotional forces, by spiritual forces, by critics, like John Gardner's on moral fiction. The artist is shaped by the critic is shaped by the artist. And that's what we have. Anyway, before I just go on and on and on, I at least want to read what I just wrote. 4/19/2019, beyond fair use. Q. Question. At what point does a work of art, aka a story, a picture, a logo, a brand, a production of any kind, protected by law, law written, law agreed upon and made, protected by law as a newborn by its mother, by its father, so that it may grow and be free and succeed? At what point when, at which point whence, the law of protection has fulfilled its duty, and the thing it protected, the idea, the person, the franchise, has not only survived but succeeded, thrived, not only but exceeded the original intent of the law, has occupied the intellectual, emotional, and spiritual thoughtscape over vast populations, has become a shared cultural value in the hearts and minds of millions, even taken shape in dreams. At what point does an idea, a product, a name, a slogan so far exceed the scope of the law which nurtured its development, become, at least in so much as its symbol is concerned, a piece of cultural heritage, a part of our common story, an institution subject to its subjects? That would be the first long sentence. First short sentence, which is to say, if you are big enough, the corporate you, then you and little you become a piece of the royal we. Footnote, the royal we is not a reference to royalty, but collective. We, everyone, we. The Commonwealth, even without king and queen. Which is an important footnote, because I'm not referring to Commonwealth as it's justified, or I'm not referring to it as like a royal Commonwealth in the real in the royal sense, not the collective royal sense. Yeah, even without the queen and king. Okay, and then the third sentence, I guess it could all still be part of the same sentence, but mathematics is the only unpatentable thing. Upon the foundation of complete mathematics, all brand protectionism will be obsolete, null and void, and the shapes as thought forms will be left to speak for themselves.